In this video, I'll go through 5 tips on taking better photos. Coming up. Hey guys, Larry here, and on this channel we dive into men's lifestyle and travel. So I got requested from my last video of 5 tips on how to pose, which is a really good video and you should check out, on how I take my photos, and I'll go through my process and go through some tips that you'll find super useful. And I just want to say, knowing how to take a good photo and knowing how to pose really go hand in hand with taking better photos. And trust me, you want to educate yourself now, because you don't want to be out on the field with a client taking all these test shots 1,000 photos later, where you could have educated yourself now and taken 5 shots that could have been the bangers. So let's start with positioning and angles. So with positioning, what you want to do is bring your camera to your chest area and take a photo straight on, which creates a better flattering photo. What you don't want to do is bring your camera up to your head and actually angle it down to fit everyone in the photo. What this does, it distorts the image, it makes people shorter, and also it makes people top heavy. Also, what you want to look out for is how much sky and ground is in a photo. So you kind of want the same amount, or you want less of the ground. Try not to get people in the photo, as you kind of want to wait for other people to walk by or not looking at the camera, as you want the subject to be the main focus. So I'm going to be contradictory with what I said a second ago about bringing the camera up and tilting down. You can 100% do this if you're going for that creative direction. The other thing that you could do is bringing the camera down and tilting up. And this also is fantastic, brings a different perspective to your images. So this can change your story and feeling that you're going for, instead of just going portraits straight up. So it all depends on the concept that you're going for and the type of photos that you want to shoot. All right, number 2 is bokeh. On your iPhone, you can use a portrait mode to get the blurry background, and it all depends on the type of lens that you use on your DSLR, which really shows how much depth that you can actually bring to the photos. So bokeh makes it more dreamy, it's more pleasing to the eye, and it really isolates the subject. And with that, bokeh really fixes unpleasing items in the background. But keep in mind, when you're traveling, you kind of want the background to be in focus as well as a subject, because I've seen so many people that do travel photography and all you see is the actual subject with a full blurry background. No one knows what the background actually is, but it was actually the Colosseum. But how would you know, because the background was so blurry? As an example, f1.2. So what I would recommend is bringing the bokeh down and showcasing the background and scenery in your photos. So it all depends on what type of photography you do. For me, when I do travel photography, I want to see the background. You know, I'm traveling to a destination, I want to see the background. I want to look at these photos and live their moments again. This brings us to number 3, which is camera lengths. If you want more of the background in, you want to go for a wider focal length, like a 16mm. However, this will actually bring the background further away from the subject. So you have to keep that in mind. As compared to a larger focal length, which will actually bring the background closer to you and your subject. If you want a more close-up shot like portraits, I mainly shoot to 55 to 85mm, and this brings the background closer as well. It brings a bit more bokeh to it too, compared to a wider focal length. So I'll put up an example of the different types of focal lengths and the distortions that it does to the images. In my opinion, I love using the 35mm because it blends the subject and also adds enough of the background into the image to create more of a lifestyle photo. And if you have a 35mm 1.4, you'll know what I'm talking about. 4. Lighting and shadows. So lighting, I've actually mentioned some tips in my how to pose video, and you should definitely check it out after this video. You definitely don't want to take photos in harsh sunlight. However, you definitely want to take photos in soft light, like the mornings or late afternoons. If you have to shoot in direct sunlight, you can always use a diffuser to diffuse the sun to make it more of a soft light. And with harsh sunlight, you can always be creative with the shadows by using architecture or objects to cast shadows. And on screen, I'll put some examples up. And here I'm shooting under some beams, and it also casts really cool patterns on the ground. When you're out and about scouting for locations, you want to look for framing and also negative space. You can use your own artistic flair to your photos. You just got to look around for different types of framing and different type of lines. And you just got to imagine it in your head where the subject will be positioned. When you're using framing and negative space, it creates complexity and depth, and it really shows that you thought about the photo. And with negative space, it's fun, and if it's done right, it can also look amazing. is when there's more space than the actual subject itself. So as an example, you can use a rule of thirds and place a subject on the third, and the rest could be negative space, or just say architecture, instead of having the subject right in the middle. So what this does, it brings the image, gives the image a little bit more breathing space. So I got a couple additional tips. So 1, always shoot raw. 2 is taking more variations of the subject or model. So when you're taking a photo, instead of just taking a photo straight on, make sure to take more photos, so a little bit on the left, a little bit on the right, top and bottom. So when you actually go back on your computer and you do your edits, the photos that you didn't think would be good are actually the bangers. Going off that, when you're transferring your photos to your computer, make sure to back up your photos straight away on another hard drive and also on the cloud. And make sure you don't over edit. Don't use too much clarity, don't use too much contrast and make people look like zombies. You want people to look like they're in a natural state, and please don't use too much filters and presets. Just turn it down a little. If you guys have any other photo tips, let me know in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.